Today we're going to be looking at a fun way to do a form of 3D design called lathing, where you trace a two-dimensional silhouette and then you orbit that silhouette around an axis and create a 3D object like a vase. I'll be using two freeware programs, the excellent OpenSCAD and the equally excellent Inkscape. Now OpenSCAD is a 3D design program that uses script. You type in instructions and it produces those objects or those shapes on the screen, and then it can dump those into an STL file for 3D printing. Inkscape is kind of the 2D equivalent of the same. It's a vector graphics program where you create objects out of vectors, and then it can scale those to any size or shape you want, and it dumps them, when it saves them, into a text file that human readable and that OpenSCAD can read. So let's take a look at how that works. What I have on the left screen here is OpenSCAD. I've just dragged the editor, the text editor, form down to the bottom, and this is the rendering window. In OpenSCAD, the only thing you do in the window is manipulate the scale and rotation of your view here. You don't actually drag or drop any objects with your mouse. So let's start off. First I'm going to save this OpenSCAD file. Let's say save as, and I've got it in a directory. Just Untitled SCAD is fine. Sure. And then over in Inkscape, I'm going to save this file, and they need to be in the same directory. I call it drawing.svg. That's fine. So now the drawing SVG and the Untitled SCAD are in the same directory. So let's just draw a shape here using the Bezier curve and straight lines tool. It's also Shift F6. I can draw any shape I want. That's useless, but it'll show what's going on. I'm going to hit Control S to save that, then go over to OpenSCAD and say import. Let's make this bigger. Import drawing.svg. If you didn't have this in the same directory as each other, then it just wouldn't find it. You get an error. Once I've typed that line there, I hit F5 if all has gone well, and there it is. Perhaps best if I just look straight down at it, and you can see it's the same shape, although it has some notional depth here. It's not really a 3D object yet. But before that, I'll type an instruction to rotate extrude it. And when I press F5, voila! Now it's been rotated around the Z-axis to make this 3D shape. And all I have to do, go back over to Inkscape to change that shape, is use this second button here. It's Edit Paths by Nodes, or hit F2, and then I can rearrange any object, or sorry, any node here, and you'll see that when I hit Control S to save it, and then go back to OpenSCAD and hit F5, now that new object is lathed. So clearly neither of these are very interesting. They're very ugly, but the general concept you see. Let's go back to Inkscape and see if we can make something that's actually something you wouldn't be repulsed to call your own creation. I'm back in the Bezier curve and straight line editing mode. I'm going to hold down my control key so that the dots, so the nodes, fall on an X or Y axis. So that's what I have so far. And then over here I can just put some curves in however I like, clicking and dragging. And then I'm going to do a solid one and end it off over here. Now if I go to the node editing mode here, F2, you can see that these two nodes here, this one and the top corner one, are not in the same, they don't have the same X value. They're not directly above and below each other. That'll cause problems if I leave it that way. Fortunately, Inkscape allows me to select nodes like this and then go to the Align and Distribute tool I've pulled out here, and then click on this Align Selected Nodes to Common Vertical Line, and now they'll be in the same plane. Okay, so that's one half of my vase, or that's one half of the silhouette of the vase. I save that, go back here, and you can see the problem is there's this big hole in the middle. It's because I did not move the vase to the origin. The origin in Inkscape is this bottom left corner of the document. That's 0, 0. So I'm going to grab my vase, silhouette, and then I'm going to go to the transform menu, go to move, and untick relative move. And then go to horizontal 0, vertical 0, apply. Now it's moved down to that 0, 0 origin. So if I save this, go back to Inkscape, press F5, now I've got the actual vase shape that I wanted. Now in OpenSCAD, you can see that it's kind of defaulted to a pretty blocky shape here with clearly visible facets around the central axis. I can control that by adding something to the rotate extrude command here by saying $FN equals. And the number I put after here will be the number of radial subdivisions. So if I go to 4 and hit F5, we've got a 4-faceted object. And if I go to 64, suddenly it looks a whole lot more like a smooth circular type object. You don't always want to be as high resolution as you can imagine. If I go much higher than 100, then it starts getting very slow to process, and you'll end up with excessively large files. I usually try to keep 98 my top resolution, but sometimes I find that the lower resolutions like 16 are more attractive. So let's go back to our drawing over here. This is the silhouette of a vase in OpenSCAD, but you see there's no hollow in the middle that anything could go into. Now if you print this on a 3D printer in vase mode, that won't be a problem. It'll just print the outside periphery and leave a hollow in the middle. But maybe you want to do more than just vase mode. You want to actually control how thick that wall is out here. I can do that back here in Inkscape. I'm going to hit Control. First off, I don't like the look of this thing. Let's make it a little less ugly. Get rid of some of these. Get rid of you. I'm going to drag this guy out here. Maybe that's something I won't be repelled by. And let's grab all these nodes and move them in. Okay. Now, hit F1 or the selection arrow up here and hit Control D. That duplicates an object. And I'm just going to change the color so it's more visible what I'm doing. And I'm just going to be moving this until I get something like the profile is something I would want to subtract from that outer wall. And I can use the nodes function on it as well. Select those lower nodes so I have a thicker base. And I think that's a little too close to the wall there, so maybe I move that out there. So now when I subtract the yellow from the blue, I'll have a good thick vase wall. See if I can zoom in so that's clearly visible what I'm doing. I click on the yellow, then I hold down Shift and click on the blue, hit Control minus, and now I've got this rather smooth and pleasing looking profile. Hit Control S to save it, go back to OpenSCAD and hit F5, and there it is. Now that one looks like it could use some more resolution. There it is. Kind of a fun function here is you can decide instead of rendering the whole lathed profile of it, you can just do part of it. I do that often if I want to see what a cross-section would look like. So type in angle equals 180, comma, and hit F5, and now I can see what it looks like in cross-section. If I've got a wall a little too thick or too thin somewhere, I would not be able to see that, or if I'm trying to make fitting parts that can go together. So that's the basics of making a vase here. If you feel like going further, you can do all sorts of nifty things. It's a pretty simple way to make chess pieces, if you're so inclined. I'm holding down Control again while I do these first ones so that they are perpendicular to each other. And then just model a simple chess piece, like maybe a pawn. Go like so, and here. And then I can grab my nodes and pull in the middle out and get that nice kind of curve here. And I can pull this one into half a circle. And I think these ones would be prettier if they're evenly spaced. So I go over to the Align and Distribute, click on the Distribute selected nodes vertically, and now they're evenly spaced with each other. I want to get these two in the same vertical plane. And how did I do on these curves down, these points down here? Let's make all those evenly distributed vertically. let's make all these ones in the same plane, and these guys in the same plane, and this one, I'm just going to move this one in a little bit. All right, let's move this guy in a little bit more. And now let's see what kind of a piece we get here. So we got to move this back to the origin, as you recall. So go to the transform, put the horizontal and vertical at 0, Control S to save, back to OpenSCAD, hit F5. And now we've got what half of a pawn might look like. If we want to get the whole 360 degrees, we can either type it here or just delete the angle command entirely. And there we've got a not a terrible looking pawn, maybe a bit too complex. But you can tinker with that all you want back in Inkscape. Anyway, I hope you found this to be helpful and fun. I know that I've enjoyed playing with it. And once I start tinkering, I can never stop. Like so. You make these guys straight. It's really amazing what these two freeware pieces of software can do for you. Put you back at the origin, apply, save, and yeah, see the change. Okay, that's all I got for right now. Enjoy. Bye-bye.